Hello and welcome to A Celtic World, the YouTube channel and podcast that celebrates the fact we've got Celtic fans all around this big wide world. From Wick to Wicklow, from Perth to Palermo, wherever you are, you're very much a part of A Celtic World. So welcome along. A few of you joining in the comments. We'll get into them in a minute. But first of all, who have we got with us? We've got a slimmed down show, at least in numbers. Speaking for my waistline. And then we're just down to me. So we've lost Greg momentarily. Hopefully he'll be back in a minute. This might be a good opportunity for me to let you know where we're going to be going out. You'll notice the time is a little bit different. Your clocks have changed back in Europe. And we've not changed our clocks, but we've tweaked our time just to hopefully fit in a little bit better. So we are we're going out at these times. As of this week, Dano was hosting on Monday, and obviously back with you today. This is the new time, so Celtic Park time from 11 a.m. This will be us until such point in time as we are. The clocks change again back in Europe, so yeah. So look at the times. There they are, based on wherever you are. You'll be able to work it out from there. But 11 a.m. Celtic Park time. This is us now until the clocks next change. Let's see who we've got in the comments while we hopefully get Greg back. Who's in there? Pork Chop Express. Morning, gents. He was very early. I was setting the show up at my lunchtime and accidentally had it on a bit earlier. So he's jumped in. Mark Nisbet, hail, hail, fellow champions. Hail, hail to you, Mark. David, hail, hail from sweaty but steady Bangkok. Yeah, we wish David, our regular contributor, well. Seems to have escaped relatively unscathed with the madness that was in Bangkok with those earthquakes just recently. So we're pleased that you are all safe and sound, David. If you get a chance to jump on, you might want to, because at the moment, with Greg disappearing on me, it might be me. I don't know. We might just be having a conversation with the comments this week. We'll see. 420 somewhere. Good morning, all. Hail, hail. Good morning to you. Tam Mac, hail, hail. Hail, hail to you. A few others in there. And yeah, we're pleased to have you all. So we will let's cover what we're going to do. As I say, we had Greg in London, and then right as I was about to introduce him, he's disappeared. So that's not perfect timing. Oh, but look at this. Look at this. To save the day, here he is, getting his head. I'll give you a second. Are you okay there? Thank you for popping in.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good,
all good,
man.
all good.
Got Greg back, I think, which is good. But we're delighted to have you join us. So thank you for popping in. If you're happy, we're delighted. I know I think you were on Monday, so we might rehash a bit of hearts, but not too much. And when we let you settle and compose yourself, we'll get Greg back in.
Sorry,
Greg, how are you?
Good.
Not sure what happened, but you're back. Can you just talk for a second? Just introduce yourself again.
Hi, it's good to be back on again. I'm looking forward to talking about St Johnstone and a little bit of chat about the Hearts game.
Yeah, great. Great to have you. Your volume's a little bit low, so maybe if you can work on getting that up a little bit, that would be great. In the meantime, I will pop up what we're going to talk about today. I'm glad there's more than just me to talk about it now. I had a little panic attack, but there we go. Right, so what we're going to touch on, we're going to have a quick sort of a brief look back on the game on the weekend. So thoughts after Hearts, we'll sort of have a high-level discussion. We won't analyse the game. The guys did a great job of that on Monday, but we will have a bit of a chat on that and how that sort of has us shaping up for the week ahead or the weekend ahead. We'll do a player focus, which will look backwards and forwards in terms of how we thought the team shaped up in the last match and how that positions us for the next game. And then that will roll into our sort of preview of St Johnstone, the Super Jays away. And then we probably will have some time for it. We will look at some of this chat around league reconstruction where we sit on it, is it needed, and all of that. And if you've got any thoughts on any of that, that would be great. So yeah, that's the plan, and we'll probably just kick into it. I'll start with you, Greg, because David, you've obviously had a bit of a say already, and the listeners will have listeners and viewers will have had a bit of that already. But yeah, great result. Did you think it was a bit easier than we thought it was going to be? How are you feeling after that match? And yeah,
I thought the first half was almost perfect. Sinizalo made a few saves. I thought the game was a good tempo. I liked the way Hearts really came at us at the beginning. That was a lot of the problem we had with Rangers. They were very forward and attacking to us, and I thought we handled it really well. I thought it was a really good game the first half. Wasn't very impressed with the second, but nothing to do with Celtic. I think Hearts just battened down the hatches and said we can't take any more, and just passed it around.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. Yeah, I sort of put in the notes, it was a disappointing, super clinical first half, like you say. I think you couldn't have hoped or expected for much more. Was it a disappointing second half, or obviously it was in terms of goals, but is that just game management? You're in 3-0 at half time, you just need to see the game out at this point, I guess. And Hearts wanted to kind of keep the score down, and those two kind of objectives sort of melded together and got us what we got in the second half. So yeah, it wasn't super entertaining, but kind of job done at that point. David, obviously, yeah, you've had a chat about the game already, but just how are you feeling a few days on? I'm still impressed by that performance and looking forward to the next game coming up.
Yeah, hi Paul, hi Greg, hi folks in the chat. The one thing we didn't talk about on Monday was the appalling performance of the referee. I mean, I really thought he had a terrible game, and he really kept him in it. I think for so for me 3-0 at half time. I wouldn't necessarily agree with Greg that it was the perfect performance in the first half. I think the first 10 minutes were quite shaky. What was good was it showed that Sinizalo was kind of up to it with with a decent save. I think his distribution under pressure, I wasn't convinced by that. But that's two games he's played: 5-0 Wraith Rovers, 3-0 against the Hearts. So I think that was pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually thought, and we'll get into this a little bit more in a bit, but I actually thought his distribution with his feet was pretty good. Like, I didn't think he was too shaky. For first time in a long time behind the back line, I thought he was reasonably confident. Great save at a crucial time, because they had a tiny lane, a little bit of pressure, and they're throwing the ball in, and you'd expect the guy to tuck it away, and he gets it on target, and it's low, and it's down. It's kind of down at near his feet. So those ones quite easily often slip between sort of arms and legs. So yeah, I thought it was a really good save, and I think it was Arnie Engels on the post that was around just to clear up afterwards. Just got one thing in the comments, which is a good reminder. I got a bit flustered with everyone sort of coming and going at the beginning, and I forgot to address this particular point that Smell the Glove raises. So no top journalist today. Well, no top journalist today. I don't think we had a top journalist last week either. And if that shtick was very close to getting him the sack, to be honest. I know Gav, even on his holidays, was not a fan of that nonsense. And yeah, he's been suspended for one match. No, I'm joking. He's a victim of the time difference change, despite being a veteran of the show for the season and last, and that we had the same changes last year. Ian missed the memo and didn't have his diary blocked out. So he will be back with us next week, hopefully talking sense about football and not pretending to be a top journalist. He did say to suggest maybe he was a victim of the Keith Jackson wine time and an issue there and sort of missed the mark. But no, Ian will be back next week. I think he called himself a clown, and Greg returned by saying not a top journalist, which I think Ian retorted, one and the same. So yeah, that hopefully that doesn't rumble on too much longer. But yeah, that is the reason for Ian's absence. He's just a numpty. He'll be back next week. We've got some comments again. John Clements coming in saying Sinisalo looked good, also extremely confident and vocal young man. Yeah, I thought that, like, especially at like quite early in the game, he was after his save and the defense cleared it. He was sort of G'ing up his back four, and a kid of only 23. And obviously on his second game, I thought that was really positive. You know, you want goalkeepers to be vocal, confident, and sort of direct the defense around. And I thought he did a decent job. He wasn't tested hugely thereafter, but I think what he was asked to do was decent, and it's sort of a kind of perfect game for a young goalkeeper to come in. He had a big save. After that, he didn't have too much to do. What he did do was absolutely fine, and a good win and another clean sheet under his belt, and it will only give him confidence, and hopefully push on from there. I guess that leads us into kind of the next player focus point that I wanted to chat about, which was the news that's come out now that it looks like Kasper Schmeichel is out for up to 6 weeks, is what's been said. There was some comments from Brendan Rodgers in the week that you know, he wasn't very specific. He said, you know, they've been told it could be up to 6 weeks. Kasper thinks it might be a bit less. There wasn't a whole lot of detail. David, where do you think this leaves us? In terms of, you know, 6 weeks takes us very close to the end of the season. What are your thoughts on how that plays out, and the fact, you know, I don't think we want to be rushing Kasper Schmeichel back, but you tell me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you know, we touched on this last week also, that in terms of the timing of it, you know, if he'd had his shoulder injury the week before the Champions League playoff, you know, in July or whenever it is, you know, that would have been much more of a worry. You know, this allowed 7 or 8, 9 games for Sinisalo to show us what he's got. Hearts at home is, in theory, you know, one of our more challenging games. So it wasn't an easy one for him to sort of start off, unlike the Wraith Rovers in the cup. So yeah, overall, I think I wouldn't be rushing him back. If Sinisalo shows up, I mean, obviously we're expecting to beat St Johnstone, you know, Hampden in the cup this weekend. But then the only tricky game really after that, sort of semi-meaningful, would be the Huns game. And if Sinisalo shows up okay in that one, I could even see him getting in the final. I wouldn't be rushing Schmeichel back for a kind of one-off game, but yeah, for me it's worked out hopefully reasonably well. But we do want him back. Obviously, I think he's been a magnificent player for us.
Yeah, so it's league duty this week. We're off to Perth.
Oh, league duty. Sorry, league duty. Yeah.
And then it's, I think, a few weeks down the track we've got the cup game. No, it's okay. It gets confusing when you start playing teams as often as we're about to play them, which we'll play into the league reconstruction conversation we will be having a little bit later on. Greg, I'll just ask you one other question on the Kasper Schmeichel thing. If he is out right up until the cup final, but is deemed fit to play in the cup final, does he walk back into the team?
Oh, that's a good question. I was going to say this is a perfect time for the injury, to be honest, because it gives Sinisalo 6 games to showcase his skills. Because there's talk about how long Schmeichel's going to be out. Is he done? We don't know. Are they going to bring someone else in? I think he's got a perfect opportunity to showcase his skills. This is what we thought Adamida had when Kyogo left, but he didn't grab the opportunity. I hope Sinisalo does. As for the cup final, well, he'll only have played 2 games in the cup, won't he? So I guess he will take preference over Schmeichel.
Yeah, look, my view is if Sinisalo's come in and plays 6, 7, 8 games by the time that cup final comes around, I think he's played 1. There's 7 games left in the league and potentially 2 cup ties. So 10 games in total available for him if he's picked for the whole way through. I don't know. I think if he has a few good games, and especially if he plays the semi and you know, keeps a clean sheet, then you probably hope that he gets the nod, I would say. So yeah, that's how I would look at it. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think there's, like you say, there's no point rushing him back. And if we've got good players, if we've got a good player, if he's a good player and he's keeping clean sheets, I don't see why you wouldn't give him a turn. I don't unless the injury is ridiculously bad. I think Casper will be back next year. He signed the extension; it's already been announced. So, but if that injury ends up being something that niggles and gets worse, then yeah, maybe there's something else there.
But is it not a wonderful position to be in, though, where we actually have someone ready to take over?
Well, there's a lot of chit chat in the comment that we've got someone else that could take over, which I'm hoping this is what's known as comedy. Tam-Mac pretty much sums it up, the bane of our lives. Look, he's been a good squad member for a number of years, but you certainly don't want to. It's a bit of a nervous situation. If somehow we had the horrible situations and Salah got injured as well, then you're probably looking at who are the young keepers in the squad, because Bain's not exactly been Mr. Reliable down the years. Look, I think that's probably enough chat on the goalkeepers for now. We did touch on this last week. We'll keep an eye on it, obviously, because it's a young player getting a chance and really getting a chance through injury, which is quite often how young players get their break. He was obviously signed to be a good understudy and to hopefully learn and be mentored by Schmeichel at some point, with a view to being stepping up. He's probably happened a little bit earlier than we expected, but he'll be itching to keep that jersey like any player would be. The next player that I want to speak about, in terms of the performance, particularly in the Hearts game, but also in the derby, is Mike Nawrocki. And just before we crack on, we've not used this for a while, so Gav will be pleased that I've used it properly. So for anyone out there, thankfully Ian's not on to butcher this, because he always makes a mess of it. But yeah, Nawrocki has now played 2 games. Obviously, Trusty never made it back again, or if he was considered fit enough, Rodgers left the jersey with Nawrocki pretty much the only competent defender in a derby. I was super impressed with his performance in the Hearts game. I thought his positioning was good. The defensive work he was asked to do against a physical striker was good. But for me, the most impressive thing was his distribution, his ability to get the ball moving fast and forward through the lines, which is something we spoke about in the show last week. We were bemoaning the fact in the Rangers game that I was particularly bemoaning the fact, I think you were, Greg, as well, that CCV was just refusing to play like simple passes forward into Engels, who'd taken a slightly higher position up. No such issue with Nawrocki. He was happy to push the ball forward, both wide and centrally. And yeah, I thought, there'll be stiffer tests in Hearts at home, and there are question marks over his pace. But he started, it's early days, but I thought that he looked much more like a £4 million centre back that we had high hopes of when he came in the door. So, Greg, what were your thoughts on Nawrocki's performance and in the Hearts games particularly? And do you think he'll keep his place going forward?
I think he'll keep his place until he does something wrong. We've seen Rodgers is fairly ruthless about that, taking Trusty and Scales out when he considers them not up to standard. And I think it'd be pretty unfair for Trusty or Scales just to walk back in. I don't know if the chat knows more than me, but I don't think Scales is back until April. So I'm not expecting him back very soon. But Trusty's a useful defender to have on the bench. And maybe rather worryingly, it highlights that Rodgers didn't understand how good this player was. I'm not saying he's a starter. I'm just saying he's a very good squad player compared to what we were led to believe. He was miles off it. He was on his way out the door like Bielka. So I'm glad he's really taken his chance, and you can't ask for more than that. When players get their chance, they come in and take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought he was excellent. David, thoughts on Nawrocki's performance?
Yep, yeah, I would agree with both of you. I think he played well. It was our only sort of small glimmer of light in the Huns game in defence. I thought that he played really well against Hearts as well. So he deserves to keep his place. Certainly for the St Johnstone game, the league game coming up. I think for a couple of the other games, I would like to get Trusty back. I think Trusty's just, for me, a bit better. So again, most of these games, once we've mathematically won the league, then we could maybe give him another shot. But I think for me, Trusty's just that little bit better. But Nawrocki's done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I tend to probably agree with you. I think the thing that impressed me was, like I say, his distribution forward was significantly better than either of the two centre backs, or three if you include Scales, when he's been in recent weeks and months. He had a hand in 2 goals. It was his pass forward to Schlupp that set us going for the first one, and he had an even better pass into the middle, I think, to Engels for the third goal. I really loved that goal. I thought, his willingness to thread a ball through the middle, and Engels' ability to just pick a pass to Hatate, and then Hatate really on the stretch, but making a crucial further pass forward, and then Kuhn being set away and clinical and make my day. And I just thought those first and third goals were just really classic front to back goals that come from passing it quickly and forward, which is what we've been asking for. If you think about that, how quickly we've moved the ball there for those goals compared to when we get stuck in the old horseshoe. And to be fair, the horseshoe was what gave us the second goal. So, it can work in terms of, Rodgers' point of moving the point of attack. And Kuhn was obviously crucial in that. But interestingly, Jota was sort of at the beginning of that and the end of that. It started on the right-hand side and moved across the pitch. And Maeda, obviously live wiring behind again, nearly gets another one in it. And obviously Jota's cleaning up. I think, I think to have players that are willing to pass the ball forward quickly and confidently is crucial to how Rodgers wants to play. And I think when we get stuck in that back and forth across the pitch, it's because players aren't willing to take a risk or are confident enough in playing a forward pass through the lines. John Clements is coming in on Nawrocki. Horses for courses against big slow forwards. He does the job against quick forwards. He would be worried. PS Scales has just started running again, but will be another couple of weeks. So there's a bit of debate about when Scales is back. But yeah, I think if the next cab off the rank is Trusty back, I think he was on the bench on the Hearts game, and you would expect he'll be back there again if Nawrocki is given his chance to keep his shirt, which I think he will be. But yeah, we do think that pace is potentially his issue, getting caught high. There was that one, the Aberdeen striker ran in behind him, and he got caught. And yeah, we've seen a couple of examples of that, which is probably why he's not been completely sort of relied upon. But yeah, I thought for somebody who's been pretty much in the wilderness for months, he's had two assured performances. So yeah, we'll see how it shapes up. But it just shows you that if, again, the opportunity came because there was injuries, and I think as Ian pointed out last week, rather than throw Dane Murray into a derby and potentially damage his confidence if he didn't have a great game, then he's gone with an older, experienced head, and he's stepped up and he's done a job. So yeah, we'll see how that shapes up. It'll be an interesting one to watch. Got some other comments about people about Trusty that are less than complimentary, which I won't share at this time. But I think he's still got, he's a youngish player. He's still got a point to prove, and he's still got development in him. But I think my concern with the centre backs of late is just the inability to play those passes forward, and Nawrocki definitely did that. So we'll see how we go. We'll start to look forward to the St Johnstone game as we come close to halfway through. But there's the sort of last thing I wanted to focus on. The front line were back to sort of, well, Maeda's been on fire, but I thought both wingers had decent games. So I don't really want to dwell on that too much. We'll probably get into chatting about that in terms of the next match when we look forward. But I thought the midfield with Kalmak back in, and then being a bit more fluid in terms of, Cal pops up in the left-hand side 8 position to set up the first goal. Engels dropping in occasionally, Hatate dropping deep as well. I thought they were back to looking really sharp, and it's the right time of the season for that to be functioning properly again. Greg, how did you feel the midfield went?
Yeah, I thought the midfield was back to its best, but then maybe it's me, but Nawrocki making those passes forward frees up the midfield. It stops Kelmack having to come back as deep as the defenders to pick up the ball from Carter Vickers, which is a massive problem. We need to move the ball forward. Obviously, we've not had someone since Aya. Aya was tremendous at passing the ball forward and running at the midfield, just saying, okay, if you're going to give me the space, I'm going to take it. Whereas none of our back four do that. They're not confident enough to do it. So McGregor has to come back, and that takes him out of the game.
It's a good point. David, the midfield was looking good.
Yeah, it was good to have McGregor back. His pass for the first goal was sublime outside of the foot. Really excellent stuff. Engels took a bit of criticism, bizarrely, I felt, from some of the sort of the websites, Kerridale Street and stuff, where they kind of thought he was between shite and mediocre. I don't understand that one, but for me, it was he's a mixture of box to box. He can do the number 6. He can do the creative passing. He's just turned 22, and he's going to dominate the Scottish Premiership next year if as long as he stays. So that was excellent. My favourite, Hatate. He actually had a good first half for a change recently, and then he had his usual sort of competent second half without really getting out of first or second gear really. So no, the midfield really worked well. I thought it was a good performance, but it shows that having McGregor back, it really helps. So it'll be interesting, I think, next season. In terms of what the spine of the team might look like if we think that McGregor getting a bit older, Schmeichel getting a bit older, rumours that Carter Vickers may be off. We'll be looking at people, whether it's Lennon Miller or whoever. But it's going to be an interesting summer for us. But
it'd be another season. It'd be another summer of change. I think there might be a bit more change this year than there was last. But you never seem to go more than 1 or 2 years where you're doing about a 3, 4, 5 player half rebuild, because unfortunately that's where we're at. I'm a massive fan of Engels. Everyone knows that. Bang on about it till the cows come home. I just don't get the criticism. For me, it's purely coming from the fact of his fee. There's nothing the kid can do about the fee, and I think he's more than justified the fee already. And he will. I agree with you, David, wholeheartedly. He will go on to prove that fee was really good business. Who knows what fee we'll get for him when he goes. No interest in him leaving anytime soon, but I imagine it'll be decent. I guess while we're on that, there was Steve, who's, if anyone's been missing Steve, and his trademark pish, or his review of things being pish rather than him just being pish. Clarify myself there, Steve. Steve's been a bit hampered by the time difference because Sydney hasn't changed its clocks yet, and then we've changed in the UK. So I think Steve will be back next week for anyone missing Rambo. But he made a good point in the group chat in relation to fees and signings and, our ability to attract players. Just in terms of, obviously, there's some news floating around that Kyogo's had a terrible time at Rennes. I think everybody knows that. He's not been very lucky. I think he's on his third manager. And he's not had much game time, and he seems to have fallen completely out of favour with the new manager. And then the previous manager's come out and said he wasn't involved in the signing of him. So it all seems to be a bit of a mess. And obviously we've done pretty, as good as Kyogo was, I don't think anyone would say that we didn't do a great deal there, getting Jota back for a fraction of what we sold him for. And then obviously freeing up Maeda to be in the middle and producing the form that he's produced. I don't, we literally haven't missed a wee man. But there's been some chat about, would you take him back? Now, that's a separate conversation. Probably not get into that now. He's obviously the wrong side of 30. And I don't think he'll want to come back because the rationale for moving hasn't changed. It's just that the club he's gone to hasn't really worked out. So he may well be on the move from Rennes, but I would expect him to go somewhere else because the Japanese manager's made it abundantly clear he won't pick him if he's playing for Celtic or in the Scottish Premier League. So, but the point Steve made, I'm getting there rather long-windedly, is that we really want players to succeed when they leave. So Jota didn't really succeed and he's back. Tierney did okay, but obviously injuries hammer him. He's never done as much and he's back. So that's great. But really, for the model to work to its best and to attract young players to us so that they can get their move, they really need to be a success when they leave us for big money, because otherwise clubs will think twice about buying players at that kind of fee if they don't kick on. And then equally, then the fall through of that is players will go, well, if I'm not going to be attractive from that club, do I want to sign for that club in the first place? And obviously Matt O'Reilly's the most recent example, 30 mil to Brighton, and obviously for one reason or another hasn't really had much game time. Greg, do you think that's a valid concern that Steve raised today?
No, because Celtic have no control over what happens at Brighton. Brighton do all their scouting, they get all the stats, they know how good the players are. Arsenal knew Tierney's injury record before they jumped in. I don't see what Celtic can do apart from give players the platform to perform at the highest level, which is the Champions League. And that's what we do. That's where all the teams do their scouting. Maybe the Glasgow Derby, they do a bit of stat collection as well. But they know what they're buying. And let's be honest, all transfers are a bit of a gamble. Engels looks a great buy. Kuhn looks a great buy. But last season he didn't. Matt O'Reilly's very early in his time at Brighton. I think he'll be a success, but let's wait and see.
Yeah, I don't think there's much we can do, but I think we should want players that leave to be a rip roaring success, and then ideally kick on to another fee, whether we've got an add-on or not, because then that really goes well. The progression from Celtic to somebody else means that player is worth spending that money. I just think if we continue to sell players for 25, 30 million and they don't succeed at those clubs, people will start to eventually go, well, are those fees realistic? So I agree. I must admit, I agree with Steve. I agree with you, Greg, that we can't do much about what happens after them. Right. But I absolutely agree with Steve that if they don't kick on after they leave us, for the longer term sort of success of the model, it potentially comes under the microscope and clubs start to maybe shy away, or those fees don't continue to move up in the direction we want and expect them to do. So I think it's valid. David, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with Steve as well, actually. I think that, one of the issues is, I mean, if you look at when we sold Van Dijk for only 12 million, and obviously one of the best defenders in modern history, I think, pretty much. And then from there we sold Wanyama, who was another great success, and then went on to Spurs, and then obviously reached the pinnacle of his career when he joined United and Firmland. And then so for those ones, they kind of set the standard, and I think you could argue that they were sort of part of the reason why Arsenal were willing to pay 25 million for a guy with a bit of an injury record. And then recently, it's maybe, for whatever reason, not working quite so well. Hopefully O'Reilly will come onto his game. But then if you look at what's the name of the young right back that went to, was it Leverkusen? That's probably going to go to Man United, or Frimpong, thank you. Frimpong. So he's going to go in probably with the add-ons. He'll probably get us another 5-10 million. So I would be a little bit concerned that people are not judging at the fact that this year we punched above our weight in the Champions League. We got an extra a couple of games. If they look at the Huns games, we've hardly covered ourselves in glory. So if they're looking at sort of the standard of these players against the day-to-day or week-to-week competition we're having in Scotland, then they might turn around and say, "Well, I'm not willing to take that risk." But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But
yeah, Brighton aren't any mugs, as sort of Greg alluded to. They've had a track record of buying players at lower fees and selling them for huge amount of fees. I think it might be yourself, Greg, that said what O'Reilly was their 7th highest signing. So they are sort of potentially, and this is a bit like us. We've got to move up the food chain, because you can't grab a player you can't be sure you're going to get a player at 40 or 50 games and make them a success and get them for under 5 million. By the time they played 50 games or 60 senior games, you're up towards the high single figures or even into double figures. So, and then if you're up the next echelon to get a Premier League player that you can hopefully then develop and sell on, because that's Brighton's model as well. They're just further up the food chain than us in terms of the price they pay for players. They would hope to do that. O'Reilly's not had the best luck with a bit of an injury and stuff. So I think he'll be a success. I'm of the view, and I think I put this in the group chat. I think Atalanta would have been a better move for him. I just think at the pace of the game in the Italian league, he'd have, I imagine he would have reveled in that. And they played a game not dissimilar to our style, but with probably even more aggression. So yeah, maybe not the best move for him, but we'll see. Still time to go on that. A couple of good comments here. I put up the ones from Monty with regards to Wanyama, Virgil and Ayer. They did all work out. Good point about Frimpong, David. We've been waiting for the add-on for him for ages, and he just goes from strength to strength at Leverkusen. One of the reasons he hasn't actually moved on is because the fee that Leverkusen want is so high that teams that look at him go, right, who else can we find that can probably do a close to or similar job for a smaller fee? And that's what's being looked at the minute in terms of, teams like Liverpool and Manchester United have been linked with him, and we'll see how they go. Good comment here from Strangelove the Doctor. Iwata and O look like they're doing all right, absolutely, but they're playing at a much lower level. O's ripping it up at Genk. I saw a stat today. I think he's scoring once every 58 minutes for them, and he was always a player there, but it's just getting it going in a short opportunity time. And Iwata, again, he's playing in an absolutely stacked Birmingham team in League One, where the only club I think that comes close to them is Wrexham, and they're paying championship wages as well. So they're both those teams, both those teams are probably certainly Birmingham are paying higher wages to basically guarantee their move up to the next level.
But don't forget that Brighton are owned by Tony Bloom, and he has his own analytics group, which Hearts are part of. So they scout players from all over the world. This is why they just basically sell every season 60, 80, 100 million to Chelsea for people they've only had 2 seasons and paid 20 million. So maybe we're just being too early.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
O'Reilly time, because if you'd said to anybody at the end of last season, oh, by the way, you're going to get 25, 30 million for Nicholas Kuhn, people would have said, I'll take it straight away.
Yeah. No, it's true. No, it's true. I'm not writing O'Reilly off, and I know there is time for it to turn around. I just thought it was an interesting point that Steve raised, and longer term, we're going to want the players that move on to really kick on and be a success, like guys like Virgil and Frimpong and these kind of players. Look, we're well into nearly only 20, 25 minutes to go, and we've barely touched on the St Johnstone game. So given that's what we're mainly here to talk about, let's get into it. So St Johnstone, lunchtime kickoff, I think, on Sunday, which with the time difference is now a very pleasant 7 p.m. for me. I think what will that be, David? 6 p.m. for you, is it?
Yeah, 6 p.m. Bangkok. Oh, happy days.
Perfect. We can get to watch the game, have a beer, and get to bed at a reasonable hour, which is absolutely delightful as far as I'm concerned. So been few and far between this year, the old lunchtime kickoffs at home. So yeah, that one is great as far as I'm concerned. I think, look, feels like it's basically going to be a home game. This is the game we've been given the 3 stands for, because St Johnstone have basically gone, we need the money, and they've moved some season ticket holders around, and they've sort of taken that view, which is kind of against the grain with most of the clubs in Scotland. Do we have any concerns about this game, Greg?
No, I expect the same again. I suspect, St Johnstone are really poor. They haven't scored in 2 games, and I think they've scored 3 goals in the last 5. So I'm expecting us to go for it to be high tempo. As you said, it's going to be a home game. There's going to be 3 stands full of the boys. I think it's going to be an absolute excellent game for us to watch. And another very easy game for Sinisalo to bed himself in. And if anybody's carrying an injury, this is the game where you can rest them.
David?
Yeah,
we won 6 now. I think we won 6 now there earlier in the season. Is it going to be a similar scoreline, do you think?
I think so. I had said 7-0 on Monday, but that was because I think it was Snitch had said 6-0, so he had taken my prediction. So, I think there's no reason why we can't go in with obviously massive confidence. They're bottom of the league. They're not scoring goals. They're, we've got Kuhn hopefully back into form. Jota having had 2 weeks rest to get his, fitness levels up even higher. Maeda's Maeda. So really, there's no reason why we shouldn't go there and take 4 or 5 off them at least. So no reason to be anything else but very confident. The only thing I would say is I wouldn't be contemplating resting anyone. We're now in a situation where we're not playing any midweek games, so let's play our strongest team, and then give the likes of Vida or whoever some game time in the second half. But this is not the time to start. Don't start slowly. Start fast, and then likes of Smelly Glove, get Jamesy off to get his goal for the 16th consecutive season.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. There's a few games left, and you'd think if he's off the bench and we get a late penalty, there might be one handed to him if it's a few goals to the good. Be great to see it. Quite the servant. Yeah, look, I think on sort of stats, yeah, they're running about, I think, third worst in the league on a most six game form. Only Dundee and Killie worse than them. That said, they've only lost one in the last 4. Last time out to Hibs, who are the form team in the league. They're even the form team ahead of us. And then other than that, they've had draws against Aberdeen and I think Dundee. They're not scoring very many at all, but they're not really conceding that many. Obviously, they lost 3 to Hibs. But yeah, I tend to agree. I think if the Hibs put 3 past them last week, if we turn up in any kind of form, I would say, yeah, we're looking at a comfortable win without being overly confident. They are bottom of the league for a reason. I think the new manager has got them a little bit better organised, and he's had a few results, but there's still a gap to sort of 11th and 10th. If Dundee and Killie's form is worse, so there is a chance, obviously, with the way the split rolls, they'll have to play each other again. All those teams will take points off each other, so they could still get out of it, but I would imagine they're the bookies' favourites to go down as it stands. So yeah, you would absolutely expect us to go in and win that. Greg Davids just said we need to play our strongest team. Do you agree?
As long as Rodgers makes early subs, yes. But I thought in the Hearts game, his subs were very late because the game was dead in the second half. So it was nice to get these players minutes. Players are not going to come to the club if they're just not going to get minutes. But remember the outcry when Ange started playing players who'd sat around all season after we won the league, and then we stopped winning games. These players like Iwata, they need minutes. Yeah, I know Iwata's moved on, but you need to give Kuhn minutes to get fit, Jota minutes to get fit. But then you've also got Kuhn, who needs minutes. And we need these players to know they're part of the team and we'll get a chance. If you're not going to get a chance, no one's going to come to the club.
You mean Yang? Do you mean Yang?
Yeah, Yang, sorry, yeah.
Yang. And then obviously Forrest coming back from injury, you want him to get some minutes. Absolutely agree. I think we will play our strongest team. We'll probably see pretty much the same team as last time. As we discussed at length, Nawrocki probably deserves to keep his place. Sinazalo will keep his place, obviously. Other than that, there's not a lot to pick from unless anyone's had a knock over the week from training. But you'd expect us to go out and pick our strongest team, especially in an away game where they've sort of fight for every point. Strange of the Doctor pretty much summarising a similar point. Like St Johnstone, that they've been trying to play good football under Valakari. It will develop them in the long run. However, we have much better players to expect to win comfortably. I absolutely agree. And Plunge McNugget is coming in with performances don't matter at this stage. Just get the wins, get the League One before we go to the Bigot Dome. Of course, that would be delightful. Yeah, I think if Hearts tried to come out and play a bit against us first half and got blown away, if St Johnstone try and do something similar, which they might, because that's kind of their style, then I would expect us to do something similar. McLaughlin P being a bit more cautious, he's got a simple 2-1 win.
Oh dear.
So you never know.
I'd take it.
Yeah, we'll take any. We'll take any. At this point in the season, you absolutely take any.
That's got to be the first half score, no?
No, we'll see. I'd be disappointed if we're conceding, to be honest, in the first half. But we'll see. Right, we've a few of you have started to come in late. I think the time differences and the time changes sort of caught a few people out. So we will just put this back up now. This is the new time until the clocks change again. So 11 a.m. Celtic Park time from a change from 9:30 a.m. Hopefully give you a chance to get out of your bed and get on, skive out of work or watch us back at lunchtime. If you can't be on live, the other times around the world are there. Work it out for yourselves there. And our fearless leader is currently in Naples, of all places. He's made his way from Ireland to Scotland on his European tour. He spent some time with Mickey, who some people will remember, who's a sometime contributor to the show, who runs Finnegan's in Rome. He spent some time there in the last couple of days, and he's now on his way, or I think he probably arrived in Naples. But I thought that was timely that we maybe use this one.
Ciao ragazzi. I cannot believe how great a Celtic world is. Magnificent. It's very important to subscribe. Everybody do it immediately. Okay.
So yeah, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do like the episode, subscribe to the channel. We're still pretty small and young. It's only our second season. So yeah, if you can get involved, that would be great. I'll pop this up while we do the next bit, give you a bit more info. So yeah, look, I think we've probably covered the game. Although it's the key thing in the week, it's probably as straightforward a fixture as we would expect at this point, and coming off the back of a good win after a really poor result and disappointing performance is hopefully got us in good shape. So yeah, I think we're all on the same page. Will we do a quick prediction? David, are you going 7-0 again?
Yes, 7-0. Hail, hail, Eddie from the world famous Bangkok Celtic Supporters Club in the chat. Yep, 7-0. I've stopped this being too sort of cautious about these things again. So learnt my lesson. 7-0. Jolly
good. Greg, prediction?
Yeah, I think it's going to be high scoring, so I'll go 6-0.
6-0. So we've got 7-6. Oh, let's go 5. We've beat them 6-0 and 4-0. I'll split the difference and say we'll do them 5-0. But at this point, we'll take any victory. But yeah, that would be a really good result. Let's hope it is as straightforward as we are predicting. I thought we were going to stop doing predictions because we've been quite foolish with them in the past. But hey ho,
I have.
Yeah, well, there you go. So look, the last thing that we talked about, we originally said we might not discuss this, but we've got the time, and I thought actually it's a story in Scottish football that's gathered a bit of momentum, and there's been a few different sort of opinions on it. So I thought we'd touch on it, and it's the old league reconstruction rearing its head again. Like we've probably had the steady position of the league for maybe the last decade plus. Probably, I think, since we went to the 12 teams in the 6-6 split. I know everybody doesn't necessarily love the split, and the odds and even games is probably not ideal. But I think it's certainly been better than 10 teams and play everybody 4 times, which seems to be the preferred suggestion by Doncaster and his cronies, which, you know, if you know anything about his history, is about the least surprising thing you would expect. The guy's a clown. It's unbelievable that he's still in role. He's the idiot that locks us into terrible TV deals when other leagues that have got less attendance and, you know, less overall kind of positive factors about their game are getting huge sums more, and then they can't find sponsors for trophies until the last minute. They can't get good TV deals. It's just a bit of a shambles. But I guess the landscape's changed again with the European competitions changing. There's more games in Europe. There's more competitions in Europe. The league structure, the long tables has added more games. We probably is start to be a time to discuss this. Obviously, the broadcasters are always going to want 4 derbies. The fans are kind of want them as well, although, and we've got this interesting idea from Kaiser. I'd like to play the Huns 1 time home and away for 10 points a game, bring back the spectacle. I think most of us are probably most of Andy's corrected his spelling, so Gav will be pleased. So yeah, I definitely thought. I think going back to 10 would be a disaster. You know, one of the at least in the current format, you play some teams 4 times. You don't play everyone 4 times. I think that regularity of play is, you know, it definitely makes it a bit boring. The version I like, and some teams, you know, some people call them for 16 and only play each other twice. I think that's completely unworkable for the broadcast reasons I've just touched on. The one that seems interesting to me is the 14-team league with a 6-8 split, whereby the top teams have a split of 6, so they've got fewer games, but the bottom 2/3 half play 8 teams play down there, and they play a few more games. There's more relegation spots, and then there's potentially a playoff from 7th, 6th, even 5th on a kind of semi-knockout basis to get that last 5th spot for Europe, if that's available. Guys, are you across this stuff? And if so, what are your thoughts? Greg, you're nodding.
Yeah, I'm up for reconstruction of the league. I think the split at the moment is absolutely horrible. I think the SPFL and SFA have been extremely lucky that they haven't, the way that the odd split of games hasn't come back to bite them. So I agree, the 14 teams, the 6-8 split, that's what we should be looking at. We need to give teams a chance to get into the SPFL. And at the moment, they're basically blocked because the team that comes up goes up, but the team that finishes second, which might be on goal difference, then has to play a team possibly that's been in the SPFL for a lot longer. And I don't understand why after a whole league season you need a playoff game. I'm sure TV's crying out for it, but I just don't think it's right. Also, as you said, it's extremely boring. How many times are we going to beat smaller teams? You're just going to beat them 4 times instead of the 3 times. I don't like the current format at all.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think this 14-6-8 split gives you 36 games. I think it works out at, and so it's 2 games fewer, and it gives a bit more jeopardy and interest in the bottom half. It also gives more jeopardy if 2 or 3 teams are going down, or 2 teams are going down, and there's a playoff for the third bottom. It makes more of those games in the middle of the league, to be honest, safer. If you're you're still going to want to be the top 6, but if there's a playoff from 7th to get back up into potentially 5th place afterwards, then you could potentially, if you're one of those teams in the middle of the pack, you can maybe play a few more younger players. You can start developing youth if that's what you want to do. Like you say, it gives a pathway in for teams in the lower echelons. There's some big teams, teams that used to be Premier League teams, Falkirk, back in the day, I'm old enough to remember, you guys will be as well. Greenock Morton are down there. Ayr United are having a push.
Partick.
Teams like Partick Thistle, absolutely. So there's some good clubs down there. And we've really, I think the other reason it's crying out for a bit of reconstruction is funds. Like, obviously, teams will want to play as many games against Celtic and Rangers because that's where the gate receipts come in. But equally, there's the teams that can't get up are getting starved of income. There's not much flow down. There's no solidarity payments, for example, from Europe that get past the top division. And we've got clubs, I think Inverness, Cali, Thistle and Dumbarton, both in administration. If the one thing I would say is, and it's a problem, it's sort of a nice problem to have, but it's a double-edged sword, is we've probably got too many professional clubs in Scotland. For a country of our size, we've got too many clubs trying to survive. But you want to try and find a way to help them survive for as long as possible. The game's pretty much started here, and these clubs have been around for a long time. And it's a bit, how do we change the setup to allow them to function in a way that we can keep them going, but give them opportunity to push on and up. And we haven't got that right yet. And clearly, the numbers of fans attending games in Scotland are up again over the last season. I think I saw stats the other day for, maybe it was for the last, not just this season, but maybe last season. and they're up again year on year. We are, per population per head, we're the highest attended league in the world, which is an incredible stat. Do you know what I mean? We get constantly told about a farmers league, it's tin pot, but the fans are kinds of.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Paul's
Yeah.
audio. It got stuck in a loop.
Can I just say politely, gents, I don't agree with you at all.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. My mic decided to mute. Can you guys hear me now?
Just
Yep.
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah. So just to say politely,
David, we
gents,
can't hear you, or I can't.
Yeah, I think your microphone switched, Paul. You sound totally different.
can you hear me, Greg?
Yeah, I
Greg,
can hear you loud and
can
clear,
you hear
David.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Paul.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, so I was just saying basically that I disagree with both of you. I'm a Celtic fan. Don't particularly care about the other teams. I want Partick Thistle to do well because they're my son's team. But other than that, I don't really think 14 teams is what we need in the Premiership. All it means is that we're playing.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So all we've got
I'm
is
still struggling to hear you guys. So, apologies, team. We're at a point where I'm glad you can still hear me. I'm struggling to hear the guys. So we're nearly at the hour mark. It's a bit of an abrupt ending, but I think we will maybe wrap it up there, and we'll try again on Monday. Thanks for your company, Greg, David, and everybody in the chat. We really appreciate it. I think we've got Dano and maybe Steve back, one of which will be hosting hopefully on Monday, and we'll see you all back then. Thanks for your time. Sorry about that at that end. We top and tailed it with a bit of a shambles, but hopefully the content in the middle was good. We'll see you next time. All the best.
Hail, hail, everybody.